Hello and welcome to Nigeria Now, the program where we'll be looking at a number of stories, number of issues as they emerge here in Nigeria. I am Sarah Elisha Dashup, and I'll be doing the program together with Rachel Tansey. Good afternoon, Rachel.
Afternoon, Sarah.
All right, we have quite a number of stories on our table this afternoon, Rachel, and I think it's imperative that we chew them one after the other. Now, we will recall the service chief was summoned by the House of Reps last week to actually come and give some details about the insecurity that have been going on in the nation for a number of months, and it was imperative that they give valuable answers why things are the way they are, despite what the reps feel that they have all that they need to be able to tackle the insecurity. But we keep seeing pockets of attack here, left and center. We see kidnapping becoming the order of the day, and we're seeing that the Nigeria Chief of Defense Staff, talking about General Chris Musa, has actually blamed the judiciary. He has blamed the Nigeria Correctional Center. He has even blamed a foreign country, Finland, for being the reason why they are unable to have so much success when it comes to tackling insecurity. And we're seeing that they mentioned this during the summon, just like I said. And then we saw even the police giving some of the reasons coming from the IGP of police, stating the fact that he met a battered police force, he met ill-motivated police force, and the number of excuses keep coming up, the reason why they are unable to be able to tackle insecurity. Now, Rachel, it's the same week there was someone that we also saw when Ribadu said the fact that they have been able to record a number of success or insecurity have actually gone down. Right, if you compare it to during the former administration and the present administration. And I said I think this is for Nigerians that are living in the rural areas and other areas to tell us if truly we have recorded a number of success when it comes to fighting insecurity.
You know, Sarah, nobody can say that they are meeting Nigeria in a perfect situation. Of course not. However, it looks like it's a tradition, you know, when people get into an office, rather than just simply talking about the way forward or saying what they have come to do for Nigeria, they start by pointing fingers to the past administration. We see that at every level. We see that at the presidency. We see that at the governorship level. We see that from the senators. We see that even now with service chiefs. And it's not surprising because it's a tradition. We remembered when the past administration, Muhammadu Buhari as the president was in office, we also had a whole 4 years of blame game and blaming and replace exactly for a whole 4 years. All we heard from an administration of Muhammadu Buhari was just blaming the PDP past administration. So it's kind of normal and usual for us. However, you took an oath that you can deliver. And this is what Nigerians want from you. That you know what, okay, fine, you met ill-motivated police officers. What is your plan to motivate them as the IGP? When you are talking about workforce and you're not having enough, you're short-staffed, what is the way forward? And in what have you sat down and analyzed and done a review of what area specifically is the police force struggling and where you need more officers? By now, you should have done that review and have your way forward. And then we can talk about the same thing concerning when it comes to the military and talking about the judiciary not helping to security and all of that. Now, that aside, what are you doing concerning the insurgency in the country? Because whether we like it or not, kidnapping is at the high. And as much as we're seeing the police saying that they are also going to be a part of fighting terrorism, I totally don't agree with that. Because no, you're not even done with civilian issues yet. What makes you feel you can jump into the jurisdiction of the army? And this is the problem we are having. Imagine if we will start having, like, let's say the IGP takes this serious and say we are going to start fighting terrorism now. We haven't felt your impact yet as civilians. and you want to start helping
Rachel,
the
I think
army
that's
and all
the
of
word.
that.
I think that's the word, because
Yes.
I was almost going to attack you to say the fact that if you look at it critically, it is the responsibility of the police. If not because of the way things are getting out of hand. I mean, back then, we hardly even see the army. They are
No,
concentrated
when it
with.
comes to terrorism,
Yeah, I get
it
it,
is like a
you know.
war, you
So I
know.
get where
The
you say we're
police
not
don't
even
even have
feeling
the
their
ammunition
impact.
terrorists have. You are still struggling with bullets for your AK-47 rifle. You don't know, your training doesn't include tracking forest and all of that. The military has all of that. You are literally for the civilian, restoring peace
and
within.
sanity within.
Exactly. So, but terrorism is a war. It is a war, and that is why we need the army full hands on deck. So why don't you finish with us? You know, let's walk into the police station. We made mention of that, and I don't have to pay you money to go and do an arrest that you're supposed to do without even me coming to the police station. I'm supposed to just give you a call, and you show up where I am, but I have to follow you, and still yet I follow you, and I still need to pay you to follow me back again. There's no
Actually
petrol.
fuel the car.
Exactly, Salem. And at the same time, these complaints coming from our service chiefs also shows the fact that building the nation is a collective work.
True.
If the judiciary fails to do their job, another sector will suffer. Now we are seeing that our military forces and all of that are suffering. If the correctional centers fail to do their job, how other waters colluding with terrorists to escape and even operate from within the prisons. So when one person sleep on their job, we can see that another person suffers even if that person is doing their job. So this is also an eye-opener that nation building is collective. And of course, the armed forces cannot do that alone. The police cannot do it alone. Even the people in the correction, we saw how they are complaining about congestion of the police because governors have refused to even sign warrants and
Death
certificates.
warrants.
So
Yeah.
it also opens our eyes that nation building is collective. And I just hope that you don't sleep on your job at the detriment of another person's job, that we all wake up and work together. The judiciary shouldn't allow the repeat of what is happening again in the country when all of this is up, so that military and our defense people can be able to focus on the real threat that is the problem in this country and all of that. So, but I believe that for them to be able to spot out these things, it means they are doing their job. But enough of the talk, let's start seeing actions.
Richard, you rightly stated it, because once we have come to the realization that this is a problem, then I believe that we've seen the solution already.
Exactly.
Because to be able to iron out all of these issues is very, very important.
It is.
Because we saw it in the morning. I mean, farmers are also complaining. Trillions of naira that they are losing because of what they are unable to even make access to their farm. You have to make negotiation with certain bandits, certain terrorists before you get your products. And sometimes you have to even divide the products with them. And so it's quite a sad one, just like we're saying, they're complaining even about their welfare. And I think this is something over and over. We have the scholar that is always talking about the welfare of the retired police force,
and the pension
whereby
and all of
and the
that,
pension
yes.
is not coming as it should be. In fact, people have said maybe the police should be removed from PENCOM. Let them have their own pension, where they will be able to have access to it. Sometimes when you look at some of our security or our former forces, you will attempt to actually cry. You barely believe that, Rachel. In fact, they don't look like they have ever seen the four corners of any war
office.
front of any, except when they speak. That, okay, truly, these people had. So we are hoping that, just like I keep saying, and I'll repeat it, it's sad that we keep wishing for the good old days when things were working better. And just like you're saying, we're yet to feel the impacts of our police force. We're seeing on the road, police will stop you, federal road safety will stop you, everybody is stopping, and then you ask, what is your, I mean, we need to really spell out the jurisdiction for everybody. And just like you're saying, they are complaining about the judiciary. And I think it's high time we have a fair judicial system,
True.
whereby we see that whoever is faced with a particular crime should face the full wrath of the law.
Sure.
And we're seeing they're also complaining that maybe there should be another different way of actually handling all of these Boko Haram and terrorists,
Yes, a
because
different court
a
for
different
them.
court for
Yes.
them entirely, because we saw the cases that are in court presently,
Yes.
Richard, and some of these cases will take like about 30 years to be handled. So
That's a
you
lot.
could tell, and then even the influence of these people to those who are already in prison presently
True.
is another thing. I can't help but take my mind back to the various prison breaks we've had in this country.
Yes.
Not just one state, in various states
We
we've
had in
had
Plateau,
prison. We had in Plateau, we
Abuja.
had in Kaduna,
Yes.
we had in Abuja, we've had in a number of states.
Yes.
And then what are we doing? This is still boiled down to the issue of insecurity. We are still seeing the number of ammunition that were being brought from Kaduna and Plateau State during the raid. Yes, we have to give it to our security force. They
Yes.
are trying their best. But if they have brought out all of this issue, I think it is the responsibility of the legislative, because they need their support. And just like you said, this is the responsibility of everybody.
It is.
When you see something, you say something. I think this is something that has been a slogan, whereby they say anything you see, if you see any movement, you are not very comfortable with it, you make the complaint.
Yeah,
But I
me
just
too.
hope that when I make the complaint, in the next 3 to 4 hours, I will see the right authority coming to do the right
Oh,
thing.
less hours than that, Sele. Let's talk about minutes. Let's talk
Okay.
about quick response, Sele. I mean, I'm not calling the police in Abuja to come to Jos. You understand? I'm injured. I am.
in Jos, there are various
They are
police.
exactly. Let our response be really quick to certain things. So I believe we can get to the level where our police force will be that quick in responding. But it keeps showing that there's a lot of work. There is gap that needs to be covered. But then we do have that capacity to cover that gap. And then it's all about us waking up to our responsibility and doing our job adequately.
And I think also it's another thing for the security to have a house cleaning, because over the years
Sure.
we've seen the reason why they're unable to have so much success is because they always have snitches, even in the force.
Sure.
So whenever they are planning an attack, we'll hear that somehow the terrorists have an
Knew
insight.
about it.
And then you wonder, how is all of this thing happening? So we are hoping that there will also be a house cleaning, so that when our security forces are working, I mean, they have been working, we've been hearing various raids they're doing, they have, a lot of things
Yes.
is happening, and I just hope we'll give their flowers to them, because we truly appreciate them for what they're
Yes.
doing. Now, still talking about synergy, governance, and all of that, we're seeing here the fact that the Senate is saying that it's going to be mandatory. They want transmission of results to be mandatory. And you and I asked a question in the morning, was it optional?
The first
Initially.
place.
Because this is a question, when we had our electoral act or our electoral law, everything that was stated there was meant to be mandatory. But I think that this is coming up in a case whereby we're seeing that a number of court cases are coming up, and then most of the things that are coming up as court cases are things that should have been handled before the election. And then somehow it looks like the Electoral Act is too troublesome for people to be able to break it, or for the Electoral Act to understand. We're seeing that already. We saw Syrup suing the president for actually appointing or having some APC loyalists working.
INEC.
And now we're saying that the former INEC chairman, Jaga, together with the Senate, are saying that maybe or possibly the president shouldn't be the one to actually appoint the chairman of that commission, so that we'll be able to have transparency, so that we'll be able to have integrity in that commission, because as it is presently, a lot of people have lost their confidence in the INEC, because it seems like a number of things are not working. They're also looking how we'll have people from the diaspora be able to also vote, because to some large extent their votes count a lot.
does.
And that talks about the fact that how advanced are we, Rachel? Because if the common beavers and the RF, we were having issues with them, and then we have ACOC staff that were able to even, use it properly. So how do we want to be able to capture the votes coming from diaspora back into the country?
Stella, you just said something that I believe I have to hammer on it. By nature, human beings, we are loyal, Stella. And it doesn't make sense that an independent electoral commission would have a head that is appointed by the leading party or by the presidency. Automatically, whether we like it or not, loyalty will be at play. And we don't need anybody to tell us otherwise. Because we've seen that in play over the years in the elections in Nigeria. And it's no doubt. I believe that when a commission is called independent, everything about the person leading that commission should be independent. Why are people not getting to that position by ranks? Ranks that there is already a due process assigned there and put in place, that by nature of your service here, by this, and that criteria, after this period of time, if these persons reach this certain level, that person have reached the criteria to become a chairman of this commission, and not by appointment. Because whether we like it or not, except for in the case of bribe, which is already something that shouldn't be close to somewhere like INEC and shouldn't be heard of, there won't be loyalty in play. That is, I am in a position that I know that I got to this position by laws that have been set in place, rule of law in a country that have been set in place, policies that I am not above it, neither is the president of the country above it. Therefore, my loyalty is to the Nigerian people in general. So therefore, I will find myself in a position where I'm not answerable to anybody. Therefore, it really gives me the opportunity to be independent in how I run the affairs of this commission. But when we start bringing appointment into certain things, whether we like it or not, loyalty comes into place. Answerability to somebody else comes into place. And this is where I believe INEC loses independence, because there is loyalty at play. Even if not for bribery, there's loyalty at play. And these are some of the structures we need to put in place. And that is why I keep saying it, that democracy and the kind of governance we practice is not the problem. We are the problem, because we refuse to sit down, review, and restructure. Sit down, review, and restructure. We refuse to do the work that we are supposed to put in place for our system to function well for us, come what may. We refuse to put it. We refuse to sit down and put a structure that favors every single man, regardless of where you're coming from, as long as you are Nigerian. And this is the problem we are facing. So yes, if we are going to talk about INEC, and then you have the senators sitting down, how would you spend, Sele, over 100 billion naira, Nigerian deficit naira, borrowed money to finance a budget? This is not the money we have. Our budget for years now have been borrowed funds, Sele. You go and you borrow 100 billion naira, for example, to finance certain things, and it's not mandatory. It already shows that, maybe foolish is a very harsh word, Sele, but it already shows where we are heading to as a country. In the first place, for something to gulp that amount of money already puts it in a position that is mandatory, whether law is stating it or not. Because it can't consume that much, and then you leave it in the position as if it did not eat that much when it comes to what we have. And we're talking about deficit here, borrowed money here, and all of that. So yes, it's about that time that we have our senators sitting down, sitting up, and saying, you know what, we understand our past mistake in the first place. This is supposed to be mandatory, and onward, going on from today, it has to be mandatory, and INEC will be answerable if we are not seeing these transmissions live as it is, because money has gone into these beavers, the IREF portal, and every digital thing we try to do, and we can't just scrap it and keep it at the sound as if it's not Nigerian money that we are going to take over 20 years to pay some of this debt that we are in as a country. So yes, it's the right thing to do, and I hope it doesn't stop as talk. We want to see it pass as a bill. We want to see our lawmakers sitting down, voting for it, and then eventually it's going into our constitution.
No, Rachel, while you were talking, I just couldn't help it. I mean, before it was electronic, there was a debate, there was a bill, there was a back and forth. In fact, the House was, okay, let's go recess, we'll be back, and all of that. A number of nay, a number of yes and no, and all of that, and eventually, yes, let us transmit it electronically. So at what point did we lose it? To the point that Senate have to sit again to have an amendment for that. At what point?
Something
That
that just recently
something
happened.
that just recently happened, and Senate is looking at this for the 2027 election.
Yeah.
Because of course, with all that have happened, Rachel, nobody needs any God anywhere to interpret the fact that this election this year was not what Nigerians.
wasn't.
They didn't budget for what is happening presently. Just like you said, we're talking about borrowed funds. We don't even have the money.
We don't.
We're still waiting for the national population census that we don't know when it's
We're
going
still
to hold.
waiting for international sponsors.
We're still waiting for international sponsors, and yet we keep giving flimsy excuses why we are unable to carry out responsibilities. So there's, just like you said, Rachel, I think it's high time we have a review, a restructure, and a reform. All the R's,
Oh,
all of them,
Yes.
because it just seems as if not only is INEC in need of a restructure, but even the entire arms of government need a restructure as well. Because if only the legislative know their responsibility, they wouldn't have been taking excuses such as these why INEC refused to use the RF. Then you should come and explain yourself why you didn't do what you are supposed to do. I was expecting to see the House of Reps summoning the chairman of the INEC to ask him valid questions.
Exactly.
Why did you not have all of this thing displayed electronically despite all that we went through? You promised Nigerians that you were ready. After the back and forth,
Yes.
I mean, you and I were here, castigating various lawmakers who came out to say that they do not have light in their constituencies. And we're like,
Yes.
seriously, whose
Whose fault? It's your
responsibility
responsibility.
was it to make sure there was light? So a number of, when you sit down to actually iron out some of these things and put them on the table, you will realize, just like you said, the problem still lies with the people. Because we cannot talk about we want to practice a democratic system of government and we're not ready to do what it entails.
Yeah.
Because when you want to practice something, you have to do it to
You
the
have
latter.
to.
And we are borrowing a Western way of doing things, and we have to borrow it well.
Yes.
Or we have to
Courses,
sit
yeah.
down and then do something that we think is okay by you.
Yeah.
But if you want to borrow something, borrow it well and do it well.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw various international observers, what they had to say about the election, and we were saying, no. I mean, why would they say this? This was not what happened.
And we also saw it, but we're in denial of
Of-
the reality.
So I am hoping that, just like you said, beyond Senate sitting down, I am hoping that valid answers will come out.
Yes.
Just as they are saying, 2027, if God keeps us alive, we are hoping to see that. In fact, I was hoping from next year, because we're having a dual election.
Yes.
So I was hoping, even from next year, let us see that mandatory
Sure.
e-transmission of results, because that is the only way Nigerians will be sure that, yes, our mandate was being protected. If not, we'll not be having these issues in case almost all the gubernatorial elections are presently in court. The lawyers are feeling so overwhelmed with the
They
entire
have to be
cases.
overwhelmed, sir.
Why? Because if only a particular sector did what they are supposed to do, it still boils us down to responsibility.
Yeah.
Not playing your own role well and then making another sector to suffer because they have to clean up after you.
Yeah.
And that has been the routine, whereby one sector refuses to do what it's supposed to do, and then another sector or another agency gets to suffer from it. So I'm hoping, just as we are calling MDAs to come and give us
Give
reasons
their
why they
review,
spend
yeah.
certain money, we should call INEC to also tell us these billions of
Of
borrowed
course.
funds that we use.
Yeah.
Please explain further. How did you use this money? Because that is the only way Nigerians will be sure that next time they want to go get their PVCs, they will want to queue up, because they know that after voting, their votes will be secured. Because when you know the truth, you are supposed to protect the truth.
Yes.
So just like we're saying, beyond this suggestion, we are hoping that appointments now will not be by the president henceforth, but it should be based on what you have, the qualification you have. You must have attained that role. You must be somebody of integrity. We are hoping to see when the hearing for those other recs are, whereby those APC loyalists, according to Sarah, will be here. So with all of these, Nigerians will know that truly we're in the business to actually protect Nigerians, or else, I mean, Nigerians are going to lose hope, and we are here to give hope to Nigerians
We are
eventually,
here
that
for
things will
greatness,
work out well eventually, if only we are ready to put the work down. So Rachel, thank you so much
You're
for doing the
welcome,
program
Sarah.
with me. Thank you to our viewers and supporters at home for keeping the date with us on this program. Until we come again, to have a blessed year ahead.